All right. Big hey now to everybody out there. Woo! It is a Wednesday. It is a Wednesday. Chain's running a little slow today. RPCs are down. Official RPC. I don't know. Might be back up now by the time you see this if you come back and watch it. So I know things have been pretty quiet that way. So I thought that's a good opportunity to get some information out there. And specifically talking about HSIs. So let's switch over to our Actuator app here. So here, I've talked about this a lot. I think you guys have been listening, know that I've been talking about it. This idea about HEX staking, and one of the strongest commitments you can make, probably the strongest commitment you can make, is native staking. Particularly going out Quattro Cinco. So when I put this up and I'm like, hey, before you do your next stake, you really should consider this. Now, I'm not taking away from that. Native stake is going to continue. People are going to continue to do it. Automation probably works a little bit better that way with the native staking. But here's the thing with an HSI. An HSI is simply a wrapped HEX stake. It's a wrapped HEX stake, which then can be tokenized, and that means it can be moved. And it operates just like a normal stake. In fact, the HSI contract calls the HEX contract. I'm going to dumb it way down. It just creates a separate hash identifier that is a little tiny, call it a contract address that you own. And that's where your stake is. And so then you can do things with it. And so why is that important? That is important because then it can be used in other protocols, such as in the Hedron ecosystem. There's some things you can do over there as far as lending and borrowing and turning in HSIs for ICOSA. So there's some different things you can do with it. But we also don't know what might be coming in the future. You don't know what's going to be coming in the future. And one thing I do know, and we'll get into this, this part of the stream is pretty short, is we have these people that are going through and doing regular stakes, short stakes. And they're doing 30, 60, 90-day stakes, 6 months. Some are doing 2-day stakes, whatever. I'm not here to convince anybody to do anything, go longer or whatever. I'm just recognizing that people do that. And while I'm quite often focused on the far end of the curve, there's also people that are really focused on the short end. And so I'm here to ask one question to you. If you're one of the people doing staking, whether it's long, short, whatever, why give up optionality? Why give up optionality? Right. And now I know why I have given up optionality in the past is to support HEX, et cetera, make my commitments into long-term stakes natively, right? A lot of us have done that. But going forward, right, things have changed a bit in that way. And, I'm still not going to have access to my earliest Quattro Cincos for 10 years. This will be a long time, right? So why give up that optionality? So you get to make a decision when you go to do a stake. And again, what I'd like to say is that this is not a call to action to go do anything other than to consider the difference between a native stake and doing an HSI. So with a native stake, you have two decisions right up front. You decide how long to stake and how much, and you basically give up your liquidity until the maturity, right to the end. Or if you want to say you can merge the end stake, yeah, you can also merge the end stake and you get the liquidity back then, but then you're penalized. But those decisions are permanently tied together, right? You just wait. And that's why we called it the truth engine. I didn't coin that term, other people did. You made a commitment to the contract, and you are in. You are in, right? So a different approach to this, which is more individualized, right, based on a person's wants, needs, plans. Instead of creating a native stake, you can consider creating the exact same position as a delegated HSI. Now, why delegated HSI? Well, because if you have a delegated HSI, it opens it up for use in the Actuator protocol, potentially for use in the Hedron protocol. It could be used in some other lending protocol that might come later. Don't know, right? Because there's lots of things going on over time and things change. But what I do know is you can't do anything with a native stake. And so you can create the same exact position with a delegated HSI. Your staking strategy doesn't change. Your rewards don't change, coming to that stake. The difference is that your stake becomes compatible with Actuator should you ever want to use it. And I guess that's the point, right? Because I get that question a lot. People come in and say, well, I have these stakes, that I did natively. Can I use them? And, the answer is no, right? Because only you control those keys. So again, the HSI calls the HEX contract. It creates the stake. And the stake gets paid the same. Longer pays better, bigger pays better, all the same. All right. So I guess the call to action with this would be, if you're interested in looking at that kind of stuff, you would stake first and decide later if you're going to do something, because simply doing the HSI stake doesn't mean you have to do anything other than you've made an HSI stake and you can hold it to the end date and end it. That's the entire value proposition, right? Create the stake today, keep earning exactly as planned. Later, if you decide the liquidity has value, you have an option, you can mint the matching HTT. Right? You'll be able to do that. And if you never need liquidity, you simply do nothing. Don't worry about it. The option always belongs to you. And so why does the optionality matter so much? Why am I bringing it up? Talked about this on some of my streams, right? My observation is, and maybe you have your own observations, is there just aren't a lot of people running around saying, I'm going to stake X. I'm not going to, they're not like running around doing this. We have a steady stream of stakes going in by a smaller group of people. I don't know exactly how many people, but I'm going to guess it's maybe, in the 1,000 range. That continue to make stakes on a regular basis. And the number one thing that people come back with is, I'm not going to stake. Why would I give up my tokens for this period of time? And so I think for a portion of our community, this optionality matters. It matters. Markets change, life changes, HEX drops, you want to accumulate more. There might be new opportunities that come up, but when your liquidity is tied up, you can't do anything with it. You might simply want, we've done some streams on HELOC, Boxy's put some stuff out there, treating a HEX stake like a HELOC. Maybe you simply need liquidity for something outside of crypto. With an Actuator enabled stake, you have another choice without ending the stake. Think about Kareem, and him having to end those stakes and, just to get out a little bit of value when he needed that. So if nobody knows, there's a gentleman in our community who's quite prominent, not so visible right now, but he needed value, and he had no other choice but to merge the end stake. All right, the real product here, when we're talking about this portion of it, and this is like a stepping stone into doing other things. So this is just simply talking about the HSIs. The real product here isn't saying, hey, you should go get HTTs. The product is the optionality of using an HSI. And Actuator can't even take credit for that. I mean, that's Alex from Hedron who created that contract, right? And it's become the standard for wrap stakes. Actuator separates the economic benefits of staking from the liquidity cost of staking. That's true. But when you make a HSI, you're not committing to mint. You don't have to do anything. You only mint if you want to. And there's no risk, there's no cost to doing that other than the gas to make the HSI. So you're preserving the right to mint HTTs if circumstances change. And so what might the circumstances look like? We'll make like a gross example. You decide you're going to stake. You're only doing a few ladder rungs, big, long, and HEX goes to $1. Well, hey, listen, it happened to us, right? HEX went to 55 cents. People could not get to the liquidity. It's locked up. The only way they can get it was to emerge the end stake, and they didn't want to do that, so they did not. And so the optionality here is that something could happen. The real product, the preserving the right to mint, you have that ability. It doesn't mean that people actually have a market out there. I mean, there's a lot of factors in crypto, but just having the option, right? So that's why I'm leaning kind of heavy towards HSI stakes. Now, we haven't seen the same thing develop yet on Ethereum, though people hint at it, talk about it, say they would like to see something like Actuator, but we do have Hedron and Icosa over there. And so HSIs can be created on both chains. It's just on the case of the Ethereum side, you either have to interact with the contract directly or you use the Icosa app to do it. All right. So you can think of this kind of like insurance. You don't buy insurance because you expect something bad to happen. You buy it because flexibility has value. So on the Pulse Chain side, delegating HSI staking, delegated HSI staking works the same way. You may never use the option, but you'll appreciate having it if you ever need it. Now, that does come with responsibility, guys, right? So no crap there. I mean, it does take responsibility. What does that mean? Well, listen, if you mint and you throw something away or lose something, you lose it, right? I mean, that's how crypto works in general. But I think if you're hearing crypto, you already kind of understand it, right? So again, you may not ever use the option, but you might appreciate having it. So the real question here is when doing the stake, before creating this short stake, particularly if you're a shorty, ask yourself, would you rather lock up your HEX or keep my options open, right? You're going to lock it anyways, right? So if you're locking it, even if you're going to do, do a short stake, consider making it a delegated HSI because we are seeing the market develop and we don't know where it's going to go exactly, but it maintains your optionality. You can stake it exactly as you always have, 30, 60, 90, whatever, and keep earning as you intended. The only thing that changes is the number of choices you have later. And so that's why I'm headed toward this topic and talking about it, because I always have somebody come in and be like, oh, if I only had known, if I had only known, I would have done HSI. And so remember that native staking locks your HEX, delegated HSI stakes unlock your options. And you can stake now and or stake first and decide later. It doesn't have to be something that you actually decide right this minute, that you want to go mint something. It just keeps that option open. Keeps it open. All right, let's go look at the chat here. I see 647. Hey there. Big hey now. Yeah, Howard's having some troubles lately, I hear. Howard Stern. That's where that hey now comes from. Duke Caboose. Good to see you. Mike. Nice to see you too. Yeah, the stakes are doing good. I mean, they're just chugging along. We can look at a little bit of information here on screen in a moment. Yeah, Joe. I'm usually up around this time, anyways. I mean, it's not like it's super early. But thank you. Yeah, I keep trying to hit on some of these topics as we can. Let's see. Joe's asking. Will Actuator create a standalone app on many devices? I don't know about a standalone app, but they have the IPFS. They do have that up, so you can actually do that. I don't know what's going to happen on the ZKW. However, as a community member, because I'm not part of the team, I did send all the information into Liberty Swap, and they're going through some changes over there. Some work that they're doing, and presumably after that, the HTTs will, at least the majors, will be available throughout the platform. You can provide LP over there right now with HTTs. So I saw that today when I was looking. Wish you were here. Outros. Hex for the win. You're right. Sway. We got you. All right. Hex 647. He's saying, he or she is saying, I made HTT 6006, did 3 turns of amplifying the HTTs I have left. I put in a pool to earn actuator, claiming rewards to put the actuator to get more HTTs, keep compounding, get units. Yeah. I'll show that on the screen here in one of these right now. No, this is old data. Right at the moment, what I have is the actuator site up. Links are in the show notes, and you can actually go look at the get that and go to the FAQs and go learn about this if you're interested. Let me show you this visual. You've probably seen it before. I've actually have several of them that I've done like this. So let's pull this one up and get it up on the screen. Let's go. Come on. Well, why won't it go? Maybe I have to remove myself. I don't know. Let's go here. There we go. All right. So this is what he was talking about, or something very similar. Now this is old data, so it's not something that I had just updated today, right? So I just want to be clear about that because the numbers change every minute, right? So when there's activity on change, things do change. And so if we look here, this is my very simple example. And now I have, I've got plenty of information that I can provide to other people if they ask about it. And I do provide information in the HEX bond desk telegram that comes through on a regular basis. But I have an estimate which I've shared here on screen many times about what I think the forecast might look like for payouts going in the future. And so why does all this matter? All right. So this is an example of a day 7,000 stake, and the 6,000s and 7,000s have stayed pretty buoyant, right, at the current prices. And all I was doing was this, is I wanted to know if I would get more HEX by amplifying if those forecasts come true or less. And so the first 2 examples on the screen, the first one is I amplified twice. I made a stake. I amplified once, and then I amplified a third time. Right? In the case of the very first stake, I staked the HEX, I minted the HTTs, I swapped for the HEX, and then took that same HEX, the 60,000, restaked it out to day 7,000, minted HTTs, swapped it for HEX, took the 36,000, swapped it, and then made a final stake, right? And so, so I did that. And so I got about double the T-shares, a little bit less than double the T-shares in that example on that day, and about twice as much of the HEX was locked up. But the really fascinating part is this: when we look at the estimated rewards, again, I have a forecast and other people have forecasts of what they think the rewards will be. This is a conservative forecast by most people's standard. The first one, 70,000 HEX in estimated rewards. Second one, 42,000. Third one, 25,000. Total rewards are about 138,000. The HEX return, which is the final stake that I didn't swap, was 36,000. And that gave me, for putting in 100,000 HEX, it gave me a return of 174,000, almost 175,000 HEX, which was a 75% calculated ROI. Right. And then I compared that to, I just did one big stake, 100,000, and I did not amplify at all. And the outcome there is 70% at that time. And so clearly, mathematically, if the forecast is what I think it's going to be, I will get more HEX while locking up more HEX. Okay, if that makes sense to everybody. Right, because I'm basically putting that inventory on the market and getting HEX back, and it outperforms. And then I did compare that, because I do like to be thorough with this stuff. I did compare it to doing a Quattro Cinco and what the difference is. And the Quattro Cinco being, in this case, a native Quattro Cinco, where I have no optionality. And but I would earn a higher APR, but I would have to wait 15 years. right? Get the 100%, which is not unexpected because it's almost we're almost to day 8,000, so it's almost 1,000 days later than the 7,000, which is 3 years extra of earnings. And so I did this comparison just to see what's what, and that's why some people, when it clicks in this way, they're like, "Holy crap!" So when the market misprices, if the market misprices a HTT to the high side, there are amplification opportunities, and that can happen. Yeah, yeah. And then we've seen with like Johnny's work that he's done, Johnny Chaos. We've also seen some cases where people might just want to swap into an stake into an expensive HTT, and then turn around and swap it for a cheap one, right? So we've seen some of that, and I think yesterday he did something really similar on stream on X, where he locked up like half, twice as much HEX or more. Well, if I'm not mistaken, it was quite a bit, and we can actually see that happening on the charts too, in terms of like the data of what's being minted. Chaz, I see you out there. I sent you some information. I know you saw it since you're saying that. You asked a great question yesterday that I didn't have a good answer for. And the answer is yes. You had asked if we had a completed stake, meaning an HSI that has hit its end date but has not been ended, so it's still intact, but just hasn't been ended yet, but it's past the date. Can you still mint HTTs? And the answer is yes, while there's extractable value within that stake. So that made me think of some interesting things. And so what do we mean by extractable value in the stake? Remember, a stake that is not ended, and probably a good follow-up question would be whether or not a good accounted stake could actually be used for minting. That's probably another one Chaz to go ask. I didn't ask about that. I was just asking whether we could do it, but I would think with the good accounting, you'd be able to do it too. But I don't know for sure. I have to go dig into this. So we'll just focus on, just one that is open and not ended, not good accounted. Well, it begins to be penalized after 2 weeks. Right. And so every day that goes by is worth less HEX. And so after a certain number of days, you're no longer going to be able to do any type of minting from it at all. And so this is probably like a niche case. Like, why would somebody not just end and take their HEX? Why would they simply just go to HTTs? I don't know. There might be some reasons for accounting, maybe. That people would do that. I don't know. And rather than going back to HEX and go mint, that type of thing. So we have that. Sure. HEX gang. Yep. We love the EHEX. We love in the EHEX. We know we love it. Everybody loves that EHEX. All right. What else we got going on here? Let's see. And then, HEX 647, you really covered the full gambit here about making stakes, doing the amplification, taking the HTTs, putting them in LP, farming the LP, and then claiming the rewards in Actuator to get more HTTs, and then just keep compounding. So that's like a whole circuit of things that we're always looking at with this. Okay, let me go back. Boom. All right, we're gonna go look at some information just to see where we are. Yeah, I don't know what's happening with the chains. I can't really show any normal like sites and whatnot right now because they seem to be down because of the RPCs. So a lot of things are lagging out there. Custom RPCs might not be. So just taking a real quick look at the actuator balances that are in the vaults. It looks like we've got almost 27% now of the total supply vaulted. There's still another 200 million that are going to be distributed in the coming days. In the coming year. So there's some more that'll be coming out through the farms. The farms run until until October 27, and then the actuator token itself flips deflationary. And so there's a speculation of whether or not actuator is more valuable now or will it be more valuable later. At the moment, people are loading into vaults and have been. Remember, this protocol has been around since October 24. We're almost 2 years into this one. And you can just see the balances. Almost all of them went up a little bit in the last couple of days. The 8,000s notably are approaching 14 million. So that's been coming up pretty fast. So 14 million. Now, why would people put actuator in these vaults? Because they're anticipating that there will be a lot of HTT 8,000 mints, and because there's going to be a lot of 8,000 mints, they want a piece of the fees that come with that, and so that's why that's getting loaded up. Right? We've also seen the emergence of these 30-day treasury-like HTTs, and so I'll just look at this one right here. What day are we on now? I forget what day it's. We're somewhere around 24.15 or something. But so the next one up that actually comes to redemption is 24.30. Now these don't all have liquidity in it, but somebody went through and they made 24.30, 60, 90. They went 30 days, every 30 days, going all the way out to day 3,000. All right, and the concept there is to emulate staking. Emulate treasuries, right? And what treasuries do, and how people can get 30-day treasuries and earn. And at first, I was trying to get my brain around this. I still am a little bit. I'm developing my concept, my idea about how this can work and why this would be a good thing. I'll do a separate stream on that. But right now it looks like we ended up with more actuator in 2880, 2910, 2940, 2970, all anchored to HTT 3000. And we've seen some LP building out here, right? So we've been seeing some LP put in there. If we look at mints in the last 24 hours, roughly about 2 million HTTs have been minted in the last 24 hours. Here's the spread. You can see the 3000s, probably because of the work Johnny had been doing. The 3000s lead with 600,000 being minted, and followed by the 8000s at 400,000. And so these represent all these different HTTs, right, that are on the curve and what's being minted. We go take a look at prices and what's happening there, what's going on with the old HEX. So it looks like HEX is up 5.36 the last 24 hours. I always wonder about price movements when things like the RPC are hiccuping, but that's interesting. But I'm showing HEX and actuator both being in an uptrend now. I believe the actuator token has some sort of rounded bottom going on. Right, so we have the HEX going on. So let's look at the actuator. And this is what I was saying, is some people think it's going to be worth more now or more later. And, it can be treated as a reward token just to get more HEX, or it could be treated as a revenue token to get more HTTs. And so, and there's different people who want to do different things, right? So there were people willing to absorb all of this downside on the actuator token. I mean, we hit a peak in May, and then it's been dropping down pretty regularly. But now this is in USD. We'll look at Pulse here in a second, but we see a little rounded bottom here. We look in Pulse terms, which might be more interesting. We see not quite the same, downward movement, but it also seems to be kind of bottomed out, and perhaps maybe it's going to make a turn. And so here's the thing: is when we're looking at these, these vaults over here, and we're looking at the HTT 8000, which should show up here at the top. You should go the other way. The 8000. So this is 13 million. And the next major node down is the 7000, has 123 million. That's 110 million difference. And so I got to ask myself, well, will people try to put a similar amount in? Will they try? And they may. And if they do, that 120 million has to come from somewhere. And it's going to come, some of it's going to come from the market. but there's not that much on the market, right? So to get 120 million in here, you really have to farm or already have Actuator in these other farms, and you move them over, or other vaults, and move them over, because I think effectively you might be able to reasonably buy 5 million or 7 million, right? Which is less than a whale position, reasonably. I mean, it depends on what people are willing to do price wise, if they want to get if they actually want to pay for them rather than just getting them off the market, or excuse me, by providing LP. Now I prefer providing liquidity, because I think that supports the infrastructure better, right? All right, let's go take a look at, see what's going on with prices. So a lot of green here today, again, off the back of HEX, because remember, these are priced in HEX. And typically what you'll see, if there's no action, there's times where there's no volume on HTTs, because it's a very specific thing, right? Like the $1 here, $3, $6, $3. Well, on the Quattro Seis of $1 volume, that $1 volume did not push HTT 6666 up 2%. This is happening because HEX went up, right? So that's why you see the percentage. And then people do whatever they're going to do. It's DeFi. They're going to swap. They're going to trade, whatever. And then it starts adjusting these. But in general, you'll see these following, right? You'll see them following. Now, we do see HTT 7900 in a downtrend. That's probably, if we went and go look, probably somebody sold, right? That's what happened. They did some sort of an amplification and brought that price down. So it's not unexpected, right, that we would see that. You can see the ratios here for all the pricing. On the short end of the curve here, the near-term curve, you can see the 2970, 2740, 2910, 2970, excuse me, 2940, and the 2880, and those prices beginning to form up. And the idea is to have a complete, perhaps this is the idea behind this for these guys, is to have a complete 30-day curve that goes at least out all the way to day 3000. And then the idea would be that somebody, if they were in liquidity on one of these and it comes up to redemption, they roll to the next, roll to the next, roll to the next. And in that way, they're effectively doing 30-day stakes, right? But they're providing LP at the same time with minimal impermanent loss risk. And so they're rolling, gathering units, creating a bow wave on the front end. So I think one of the things people could do that are doing the short stakes is come in and do delegated actuator, HSIs instead. And again, they don't have to do anything with them. They can kind of observe and go see what's up. But anything that locks up more HEX in terms of within staking is probably a good thing. That's what we're thinking. Then just really high observation type stuff on this. Let me change my screen so I can see a little bit better. So what do we have that looks like? I've seen some people doing amplification on the 8000s. And why do I say that? Well, really, the 8000 price can't come down unless somebody mints it. So by its very nature, for it to come down in ratio, some of you may remember this was up at 0.8, 0.75, a week ago, 0.70. The only way this ratio to HEX can come down is somebody mints the HTT 8000, swaps it for HEX. That's the only way it really comes down. So we've seen that overpriced situation drop a little bit, but it's getting close to where we would think market discovery would be. And if you look at the 7000s, they're 0.61, and that should be valued a little bit higher than later ones that are going to end later. And so 6.5, 6.6 is pretty close to 6.1, getting closer. And then each step down in a rational, well-balanced market should be a little bit cheaper, depending on what people are doing. And so the target on this is probably a little bit lower. But currently, for amplification, 8,000s pop up, but you are limited by safe swap, right? And because the price increases, you're also seeing the liquidity, and people have been adding liquidity, and so liquidity's going up. So the safe swap in USD terms has also gone up. That's one. The 7,000s, I always start at the end, but the 7,000s, I mean the end of the curve, which means further out, they're probably a good opportunity still. I'd have to go check the numbers. I haven't checked them today, but it is still a little bit overvalued from where the benchmark might be for that, at least in my opinion. 6,000s are also showing as expensive, and those are the ones that we would think would be good amplification opportunities. Now, when we talk about amplification, at least coming from the community of an actuator, we're always looking to make more rewards, right, to get more return on investment. But that's not the only time of a type of amplification. And so you can do amplification into something like the 3,000, meaning you mint the 3,000s, which are 0.85, and then swap those for HEX to get into a different HTT, or swap them for a different HTT to increase your units. And it's really close to to 1-to-1 because it's at 0.85, even though it's a little cheap. And so it's all a matter of perspective, what people might want to do. And of course, that extends to the others that are 29.70 and below as well. They all have their own different native prices in HEX that are going to be moving around a little bit. Right, so they're all moving around, all based on what people do on the DEXs and in terms of price, and it creates these opportunities. Now, like I said, I'll do some streaming on LP providing and why somebody might want to be a market maker with doing these. So I'll do a separate stream, but currently liquidity is really thin, 569, 500, 500, 100, and so safe swap gets you in the $10 range for a $500 pool. Right, so it's not a lot of opportunity to move significant value through this stuff, because then we end up with, if somebody did that and they end up with a price like this, where it's 1.2 HEX per 28.80, and there's not a lot of liquidity. It's only $111 worth. But if somebody wanted to go mint 28.80 right now, they would be able to, at least on paper, swap it for 1.2 HEX. So we put 1 HEX into the stake minus the 1% fee. They have their minted HTT. They could swap it for HEX, and on paper, anyways, get more HEX than they put in. But but we're talking about a $2, $5 stake. Maybe it can handle a $10 stake before the price comes down to 1. And you could do that, and somebody can go try it, right? I mean, that's a great way to kind of get your feet wet, I guess. If you wanted to go do one of them, go make a 28.80 stake to go prove yourself whether it's worthwhile, to do that. And I just kind of imagine what happens if people really do fill these out, right? And you have tens of thousands of dollars in liquidity, and so close to 1-to-1 with HEX, depending on how vibrant the community is and the market is, they could stick pretty close to 1-to-1 HEX. I mean, 0.94 is off, right? I mean, 9.3 is off, 9.0 is further off. I mean, but that's pretty close to 1-to-1. And the idea that you can come into the short ones, mint, you're still going to earn off of that stake and be able to swap out further with it. That might entice some people with their own, their own staking strategies, their own profit strategies, whatever they're trying to accomplish. Right. See if you guys have any questions. I do urge you, a lot of the questions are answered, at least specifically about Actuator. A lot of questions are answerable right through the FAQ, through the docs on the Actuator.Finance site. You go check that out. If you are interested and you would like it, and giddy up, cowboy. Hudson saying that. And then really just to kind of wrap this up, the whole purpose of doing this stream today was just to really talk about keeping that optionality available, right? The idea that, an HSI stake is a HEX stake. It's the same HEX stake. It's just wrappable, and it just means that you're preserving options for the future, like insurance, something you can do with it. You don't know if you can use it, but you could, and you know, and you don't have to, right? You could do the HSI and just like handle like a normal stake. I'm really interested in, you know, somebody who is doing the short staking coming forward, maybe talking to us about what they think, because there's a reason they're doing 30-day stakes or 7-day stakes. You know, I don't know what the exact time frame would work for them, but sometimes it's the cart before the horse type of thing, but in a vibrant market, maybe it would make sense to do, you know, to go mint, you know, 30, 60, 90 and set LP and earn LP fees. Maybe it makes sense because you're essentially selling liquidity to people, right? So that they can do something now with whatever stake they've put out there in HEX, even if it's short term. And so they get to have their steak and eat it too. I don't know who eats steaks. No vampires here. All right. With that, let's go ahead and close this out. I don't see any questions come up. You guys have anything that comes forward, send it out. You go on X. You can find me at HexFire.io there. You also see Actuator.Finance there. You know, make a comment on the video, like, share, etc. And with that, we're going to close this stream out. I always envision these as 10-minute streams, but here we are at 40 minutes. And so you guys have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you next time.
Yo, T, urgent HEX buy signal. Charts flaming hot.
Golden ratio, huh? That's how legends stack T-shares.
Get them while they're crispy, folks. This window won't stay open long.
Stake smart. Win big. Time rewards those who act.
Stay crispy, Hexicans.
You gotta move it, move it.
Feel the rhythm of the blockchain.